I was reborn. Back to the day when I discovered Sam's infidelity. He defended his mistress in public and even let the mistress snatch my resources and public relations. I was transported back to the moment when I had a huge argument with him. Right after being kicked out of the villa, I immediately sold his company. Have you had enough of this tantrum? Sam was smoking on the sofa by the bedside, and the thick smoke made me cough continuously. My gaze fell on the half-open script on the table, and then I realized that I have returned to the day when I quarreled with Sam. My hereditary asthma made me unable to stop coughing. But Sam just slowly walked up to me and, to make matters worse, blew a smoke ring. Because of his words, "Marry me," I announced my retirement from acting during the prime of my career. Handed over most of my funds to him for investment and starting a business. And stayed behind the scenes as a housewife. People always said that we were childhood sweethearts and had a pure relationship. But in my previous life, he didn't even know that I had asthma until I died. I just took my medicine. And when I looked up, Sam was smoking impatiently, acting as if it had nothing to do with him. "We're getting a divorce," I said suddenly as I looked at him. He turned a deaf ear, as if he thought I was being unreasonable, and continued to smoke his cigarette. Looking at him like this, I took a deep breath and said seriously, "I'm setting you free. I won't interfere with what you and Yo-Yo do in the future. In the same way, don't hold back my future life either." Sam laughed and casually put out his cigarette. "Stop making a fuss. She and I are just ordinary friends." Ordinary friends with a 15-year age gap? My face turned cold, and I rushed forward and slapped Sam. Looking at his stunned expression, I tugged at the corners of my lips. "Either sign the divorce agreement, or go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with me right now to get a divorce." "Sam, don't make me look down on you." I had heard some rumors a long time ago that Sam was sponsoring a female college student. Although it was said to be sponsorship, it was just an excuse to develop an underground relationship. The secret affair, the innocent and obedient woman, and the praise and fame from others. There was no doubt that Sam had all the vices of a man in the world. I was just blinded by our childhood sweetheart relationship in my previous life and couldn't see clearly. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but gasp for air. The emotional fluctuations made my asthma, which I had just suppressed, feel like it was about to flare up again. Sam also came to his senses because of this. He sneered, dragged me out of the villa, and said, "I think you've lost your mind." The door of the villa slowly closed in front of me. My heart hardened, and I stared at Sam behind the door crack, enunciating each word clearly. "Sam, I'm saying this one last time. We must get a divorce. Otherwise, you'll bear the consequences." Sam and I were childhood sweethearts. Since I was a child, I had been the little follower running after him. He was cold to me, but then he would make ambiguous moves when I thought he had no feelings for me, making me think that he loved me too. Unfortunately, first love couldn't compete with the new arrival. There was first love in the past, and then there was the cinnabar mole in the later days. In my previous life, it took me most of my life to see clearly this man's promiscuity. I chased after him. He chased after his first love. Later, I had already given up and focused on my career. When I became a film queen and was at the peak of my career, he came to me to get married on a whim because his first love announced her boyfriend after going abroad. Just because he wanted his first love to know that not choosing him was a mistake. He easily ruined my life. With his words, "I want to receive wholehearted love," I announced my retirement from acting. With his words, "I want to start a business," I handed over most of my savings to him. I spent all my thoughts on him, thinking that a casual goodnight was his way of showing love. I only knew how to restrain my inner hysteria through self-harm until I saw him being extremely considerate to the female college student Yo-Yo that he was sponsoring. Yo-Yo was just like his first love, Mia. In her mannerisms, words, and actions, she was like a second Mia from the college days. Sam seemed to have gone back to the time when he was chasing Mia. When he heard that Yo-Yo needed tuition fees to go to college, he secretly established a sponsorship association specifically for Yo-Yo. As soon as Yo-Yo graduated, Sam secretly brought her into the company and directly made her an executive director. He also provided her with a vacant house under my name for free to live in, euphemistically calling it employee dormitory. As soon as she frowned, Sam would put out his cigarette and hurry to coax her. As the company grew stronger day by day, my presence was deliberately erased by him. Everyone knew that Sam had a young and capable beautiful woman by his side. But they didn't know that he also had a wife who had been silently making sacrifices. I don't know whether he loved the former Mia or the current Yo-Yo. Anyway, heading full sob by obsession, in his heart, I was probably just an accessory that he couldn't get rid of no matter what he did. I just needed to manage the household for him and have children for him. So he could bully me and ignore me at will. So before I was reborn, when I had a conflict with Yo-Yo, the first thing Sam said was to ask me to leave. And the second thing was to transfer all the resources and public relations that I had as a film queen to Yo-Yo. When the phone call from him came in, I had already taken a taxi back to my own house. Do you really have to be like this? Hurry up and come back. Sam's voice was impatient, and accompanied by the creaking sound of the door opening. He should have been trying to let me in but couldn't find me. I remained silent and didn't respond. And he said, Mina, playing hard to get won't work on me. I'm not falling for that. Look. How certain he was that I would never leave him. But in my previous life, I, who had given my whole heart and soul, was so consumed that I committed suicide. Even before I committed suicide, he was hugging Yo-Yo and holding a grand banquet, enjoying the ambiguous easing from the outside world. Come to the Civil Affairs Bureau at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning with the signed divorce agreement. Otherwise, I'll sell your company, I said calmly after a moment of silence. The company as a whole wasn't very large in scale, and it was established with my funds. Even though most of the power was in Sam's hands. Legally, having fulfilled my obsession, I held the lifeline of the company. Sam said firmly, You won't. He was already annoyed by my repeated mentions of divorce. His tone changed. And he agreed, Fine, heading fulfilled my obsession. Let's get a divorce. Just don't come crying and begging me not to divorce you at 8 o'clock tomorrow. In my previous life, because of Yo-Yo, I had tried to divorce Sam many times. But because of the large amount of funds I had invested, my interests were already tightly integrated with his. My family members advised me. It's only been a few years since you got married. You've invested so much money. Just turn a blind eye and pretend you didn't see it. She's just a poor college student and a substitute. She's not important. You're not a bad person either. So just make do with it. Also, having fulfilled my essay. Because I couldn't let go of our years of relationship and because of Sam's occasional show of warmth. For various reasons. We never managed to get a divorce. It doesn't matter. This time, not only will I get a divorce, but I'll also sell all the shares of the company in my hand. I want to see if he can still manage without the financial support I provided. After selling the company, I went to the bathroom to wash my face. When I looked up, I felt a moment of trance. There were no wrinkles. No signs of hardship. I was still in my prime. And everything was still undecided. That night, I had the first good sleep in history. I had a rich life. A rising career. And the freedom I had always dreamed of. The next day, at 8 o'clock in the morning, Sam walked towards me with a dark face, holding the signed divorce agreement in his hand. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by a sudden phone call. The moment he saw the name, his expression softened a bit. On the other end of the phone, a coquettish female voice was chattering away. And he would also respond gently from time to time. I snatched the paper from his hand and carefully read it. After confirming that there were no mistakes, I walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau first. After waiting for a short while, he walked in with a cold face, his voice carrying a hint of anger as he said, You sold the company? Mina, how dare you? Do your parents know you did this? He dared to be so unscrupulous because he always relied on the fact that my interests were tied to his through this company. And he also knew that my family's satisfaction with him meant they would never agree to me doing something so rebellious. Over such a long period of time from my previous life to now, I had long been able to remain indifferent to Sam. And I even felt a bit of disgust towards him. Hearing this, I just gave him a casual glance and said, I sold it. The sooner we get the divorce done, the sooner we can part ways. Otherwise, I'll sell everything. And you can just hold on to that empty shell of a company and squander your money on women. Perhaps our confrontation was too intense, and the pedestrians passing by couldn't help but cast glances at us. Sam frowned, couldn't help but raise his hand to rub his temple, and said with a headache, I've already told you that you'll be Mrs. Sam for life. What else are you dissatisfied with? Naturally, hadn't fulfilled my sasham. I'm dissatisfied with your character. I handed the documents to the staff and turned to look at Sam. I don't care what you do in your romantic life. I don't want to be Mrs. Sam either. Sam. The love and hate from 2 lifetimes weighed heavily on my heart at this moment. And finally turned into a long sigh. Consider it my plea to you. Let me go. After chasing you for 20 years. I'm really tired. His expression changed several times. And he let out a bitter laugh. He tried to maintain his dignity, and stepped forward to go through the divorce procedures with me. I wonder who was the one begging to marry me? More than 10 minutes later, Sam and I came out of the Civil Affairs Bureau and went our separate ways. I suddenly felt a sense of relief in my heart. After the divorce, I only got back 100 yuan and the public relations resources that originally belonged to me. Yojo was even directly kicked out of the house that belonged to me. I met Yojo when I went to check on the house. The girl who was usually sweet and clean was actually squatting at the intersection like a homeless person. When she saw me, she stood up and started cursing. Who do you think you are to take my house? That's my house. Her fingers were slender, and she stretched out her hands with a fierce expression, trying to pounce on me, but was stopped by the security guards. That's my house. My resources. The thief actually had the audacity to be so righteous. I was really amused by her appearance. Is this yours? I pointed at the empty house behind me. Then you can ask Sam to get it back for you. Let's see if your president Sam can help you get it back. Speak of the devil. Sam, who was looking for Yo-Yo, arrived late. When he saw her being held back by the security guards from a distance, he was so anxious that he ran over without even closing the car door. Nina. Sam stood half in front of Yo-Yo, his face full of displeasure and disgust. Are you trying to attract my attention by bullying Yo-Yo? She's innocent. If you have any grievances, come at me. After all, I had just divorced him. And then I got into a conflict with Yo-Yo right away. Plus, when I arrived and saw that Yo-Yo was in a disadvantaged position, I preconceived thought that I was using my power to bully her. Yes, Yething fulfilled my obsession. Have you ever told your Yo-Yo whose house she's been living in? I smiled and waved my hand, asking the security guards to go and arrange various matters related to the house first. How could Yo-Yo not know? Although Sam had always hidden it from her. With her intelligence, she had long known the ownership of the house. She just enjoyed the pleasure of seizing other people's things. As time passed, she also believed it to be true. Suddenly taking it back like this would surely drive her crazy. Sam's expression froze. He turned his head and saw the evasiveness on Yo-Yo's face. In an instant, he understood everything. But understanding didn't mean he would confess. So what? Anyway, having fulfilled my desire, you don't need to live here. I'm just making good use of your house and bringing out its value, he said matter-of-factly. Yojo looked touched and hugged Sam tightly. Sam, what are lo sai? You're so good to me. You silly girl. He stroked Yo-Yo's hair. I'll take you to live in a new house. We don't think much of this shabby little house. I could buy half of his company with just one of my houses. And he calls it a shabby little house? The man and the woman in front of me were unabashedly showing their deep affection. If it weren't for the topic of my house, I would have been happy to watch the show. I clapped my hands to attract their attention. And my tone was stern. All right. Go be lovey-dovey somewhere else. My tenant is coming. And don't block my way to make money. All along, houses have been a major way for me to make money. Currently, I own 3 houses. Although I'm about to return to the entertainment industry, there's no reason I can't be a landlady and rent out the houses as a side business. After all, who would dislike having more money? My parents were the last to know about my divorce. They just calmly called to tell me to go home. That was the first time I saw my family so complete. My parents, grandparents were all sitting in the living room, waiting for me. It was my father who broke the silence first. Why did you divorce Sam? My family has been in business for generations. And my father takes it to the extreme. He always puts interests first in everything. From his marriage to my mother to my marriage. They were all marriages aimed at interests. The most outrageous thing I did was to chase after that poor boy Sam since I was a child. My father gave up trying to persuade me when he found it was useless. It wasn't until Sam proposed to me later. And I quit my career and invested half of my family property in Sam. Only then did my family fully accept Sam's existence because his interests were tied to mine. And the people of the Nina family don't allow themselves to make any deals that result in losses. I just don't like him anymore. So we got divorced. There's no need for so many reasons. I shrugged, looking indifferent. Anyway, I've always been rebellious towards my family when it came to Sam since I was a child. Go and remarry him. My mother earnestly advised me. And my grandmother also joined in the persuasion. We used to advise you not to be with him. But you insisted on investing all your funds in him to show your attitude to us. Now he's doing well with your money. And you got divorced without getting a single dividend. Our Nina family has never suffered such a loss before. Nina. It would be better to remarry him. In the future, you can use his money to have fun and make a scene. When you're old, there will be someone and a child to take care of you in your old age. In the face of money and power, love is nothing. The result of this conversation was naturally an unhappy one. And we parted on bad terms. Remarry that jerk. Next, I will gather my strength and completely take control of my own life. After leaving home, I immediately contacted my former agent. Although she was still angry even now, under my pleading, she was overjoyed to become my agent again. She said that as long as I came back, she firmly believed that I would become a top diva and a superstar. However, I've been out of the entertainment circle for almost half a year. And my previous fame has gradually faded away with the passage of time. When I went for the audition, I became the subject of whispers among several new generation actors. She looks so familiar. Who is she? Don't you recognize her? She's Nina, the winner of the last Best Newcomer award. She quit the industry right after winning the award. How cool is that? What's so cool about it? She's such a lovesick person. She gave up a great career prospect and quit the industry to be a housewife for a man outside the industry. Then why is she here now? My hearing is much better than that of others. I just glanced at them slightly. And they all fell silent. Soon it was my turn for the audition. As soon as I stood up, I saw Sam. And my eyebrows immediately furrowed slightly. Sam's company is also an entertainment company. And the circle is just so big. It's not surprising that I would run into him when I'm making a comeback. Realizing this, I relaxed my brows and then strode away from the spot. But after walking a few steps, the voices of Sam and his group suddenly reached my ears. And I paused slightly in my steps. It seems that Nina is planning to return to the entertainment industry. Sam, are you just going to let her go and take risks? She's already of a certain age and still coming back. Could it be that she's just looking for a fool to remarry? Sam's voice was a bit hesitant. She probably won't do that. Why not? Another voice sneered. Hey? Do you want to remarry her? Don't worry. Just wait for her to hit a dead end. In our territory, a woman with no power or influence. If we blacklist her, she'll know how good you are. She'll come back and beg me. Sam said confidently. That's right. In their eyes, I'm the woman who tries to curry favor with the powerful. My audition went very smoothly. Acting seems to be an innate talent in me. As long as there's a stage, I will automatically shine. That night, my agent rushed to my residence and excitedly hugged me and kissed me a few times. It's a success. The female-led role is yours. Do you know what else the director said? He said he's going to prepare another movie and give you an audition opportunity then. Do you know what kind of movie that is? It's a movie that will go international. What's an actress award? Stepping into the international stage is the real first step for you. Nina. She shook my shoulders so hard that they almost fell apart. I feebly stretched out my hand like Kang, a character from a TV drama, known for his exaggerated gestures, and said, "Calm down. Calm down." Although I said I wanted her to calm down, I have to admit that I've already envisioned the future I once dreamed of in my heart. She suddenly hugged me tightly, and her melancholy tone was mixed with memories. "You should have been like this all along." She didn't finish her sentence, but I understood what she meant. The last trace of hesitation and unease in my heart was soothed by her words. "It seems that my agent has always been the one who believes in me the most, and this is the right path that I should take in my life." I immediately packed my luggage, didn't tell anyone, and went to the remote Jicheng with my agent. All the way there, I was filled with joy. But when the plane landed, I saw Yojo. "Why is she here too?" "She's the fourth female lead." My agent glanced at Yo-Yo, her tone tinged with a bit of disdain. "She's just a little actress who got in through connections. Don't pay attention to her." I nodded and planned to leave quickly. But Yo-Yo didn't want to let me go. She walked straight towards me in full view of everyone. "Nina, you're really something. You just made a comeback and managed to get in with a famous director." Yojo's words were sarcastic. At first glance, they seemed like praise, but the malice in them couldn't be hidden at all. The gathered fans all had sharp ears. Even though she deliberately lowered her voice, some people still recorded it with a voice recorder. This also surprised me. Our simultaneous appearance here was already enough to arouse people's speculation. And yet she still dared to come and create a topic. The director had repeatedly emphasized the need for secrecy. With her causing such a commotion, I'm afraid it will become a sensation. Big news. Yo-Yo is secretly mocking Nina for being really something. Nina is really going all out for her comeback. Wasn't Yo-Yo supposed to be a pure girl? It seems she knows a lot too. Hearing the fans' discussions, I gave Yo-Yo a cold look and then quickly left the place. She's really a complete idiot. After I left, Yo-Yo finally calmed down. Her face turned pale all of a sudden, and she hurriedly left right after. The internet really spreads information extremely fast. Almost as soon as I arrived at the film crew, the hashtag #YoJoNina started trending. When the director heard the news, his face turned black with anger. But the script was his life's work. And Yo-Yo was also stuffed into the crew by the investors. Since he couldn't vent his anger anywhere else, he could only be much harsher on Yo-Yo when it came to her scenes. After all, she's in the industry. Although no one said it explicitly, everyone knew that Yo-Yo probably wouldn't be able to get any good scripts in the industry in the future. With her image collapsing at the airport earlier and then throwing her weight around on the film set, Yo-Yo's reputation among directors was completely ruined. Time passed quickly on the film set. When the filming was coming to an end, Sam came. He looked a bit haggard. He gave me a deep look and then went outside to talk to the director. When Yo-Yo saw Sam, she gave me a triumphant glance and mouthed silently, "Don't be jealous." I ignored her, turned around, walked to a place far from her, lay down, and closed my eyes to rest. Before I closed my eyes, I saw her face contort with anger for a moment. After a while, I heard arguing coming from over there. Among them, the director's voice was the loudest and most forceful. "No way. You're ruining my life's work. Even if you offer more money, it's still not possible. There's no room for negotiation on this matter." When I went over, the director was so angry that his face was red and his neck was thick. He was almost about to chase Sam away with a broom. Sam frowned, looking like, "Don't you be ungrateful. 5 million. You know the quality of your script. I've already offered a very high price. Don't be too greedy. This isn't about the money." The director was so angry that he was gasping for breath. He picked up something on the table and smashed it on the ground. "My film crew's progress is almost at the end. And you want me to replace Yo-Yo with the female lead? President Sam. Out of respect for you as an investor, I call you President Sam. But don't be too self-righteous. The script is the work of half of my life. It was already against the rules for me to accept Yo-Yo on an exceptional basis. Don't you know what kind of acting skills she has? If you insist on making her the female lead, then I'd rather withdraw the investment. You can take her away yourself." Sam really is like a persistent ghost. Looking at this scene, a sense of disgust welled up in my heart. Withdraw the investment. I'll cover whatever funds are lacking. I pushed the door open and said to the director. Sam laughed, looking at me with disdain in his eyes. What money do you have? You want to invest? I have more money than you, I said inferiorly. He probably forgot that I got a lot of things after divorcing him. Not to mention that I sold the shares of his company under my name to get the startup capital. I think that incident had a great impact on him. Now his company is just seemingly strong on the outside, but weak on the inside. It's in urgent need of funds. Yet he's still spending a lot of money for a woman. He really is incompetent. Without the filter of loving him, I can see that Sam has flaws everywhere. And I even start to doubt my past self. How blind was I to have fallen for such a useless person and loved him for so long? Nina, don't I know what you're like? You spend money recklessly. How could you save any money? He looked at me with a self-assured expression, as if he knew me well. And there was a deep arrogance in his eyes. You have to give up something to gain something. I spend a lot. But correspondingly, I can earn double the amount of money I spend. What does Sam know about that? I was so angry that I laughed. I glanced at Sam and then looked at the director. Since he wants to withdraw the investment, why keep him here? He's a spineless coward without a brain. Sooner or later, he'll ruin himself. After Sam and Yo-Yo were kicked out of the crew, the director looked at the script in a dilemma. His concerns were valid. More than half of the shooting progress had been completed, and the absence of any character would affect the subsequent shooting. But fortunately, Yo-Yo was the fourth female lead, due to her lack of acting skills. Deleting and cutting to parts related to her in the previous scenes actually made the plot flow more smoothly. Nina, it's lucky to have you. Otherwise, this script of mine would have been ruined. The director sighed. This script could be said to be the result of half of his life's efforts. However, the theme was a bit sensitive. If it wasn't filmed at this time, it would probably be difficult to release it in the future. After a pause, he tentatively asked me, "Do you want to act in a movie?" I was slightly taken aback. What kind of movie? The director smiled, stroking his chin, and patted me on the shoulder amiably. It's a movie made by a friend of mine. I've seen it. The theme is very novel, and it's definitely going to be a huge hit. The second female lead in it suits you very well. I smiled and agreed. I received so many good scripts that my agent always joked that she woke up laughing from her dreams now. We never expected our careers to go so smoothly. After being busy with filming for several years, I met Sam and Yo-Yo again in the hospital. I sprained my foot during a fight scene. I never expected to run into Yo-Yo, who came out of the obstetrics and gynecology department. And Sam was by her side, carefully supporting her. Was she pregnant? I looked at Yo-Yo in surprise. Her belly was slightly protruding, and she should be 3 or 4 months pregnant. Although I didn't care much about Sam, we were in the same circle. I remembered that he still seemed to be single in public. So were they having a baby out of wedlock? When Yo-Yo saw me, she hugged Sam tightly with a vigilant expression. Nina, don't even think about eyeing Sam's family property. We're getting married next month. If you know what's good for you, don't come and bother us. I laughed. So after all these years, Yo-Yo had always thought that I married Sam because of his money? 90% of Sam's current wealth was built up by me. To put it bluntly, he was a Phoenix man. You don't have a chance anymore. Stop thinking about Sam. Yo-Yo stepped forward angrily and made a gesture to block me. I raised my eyebrows. It seemed that the persona Sam had created in front of her was very successful. Then I wish you a happy wedding. Later, I heard that their wedding was held very low-key, with only a few familiar guests. The scene was desolate, and everyone knew why. He was on the verge of collapse. After getting married, Yo-Yo completely revealed her true colors. She spent money recklessly and, using the baby in her belly as a threat, took most of Sam's remaining shares. Sam's company was already on the verge of collapse, with a serious shortage of funds. How could it afford Yo-Yo's excessive spending? As time went by, Sam became stingy and refused to give her money. When she couldn't get the money, Yo-Yo sold the shares and the gold and silver in the house. When Sam wanted to liquidate the valuable things in the house, he found that there was nothing left. They had a huge argument. Sam's face was ferocious, and the red blood vessels in his eyes made him look extremely terrifying. He grabbed Yo-Yo's neck and said through gritted teeth, "Do you know how important this money is to the company? If the company goes bankrupt, I won't be able to survive. And you won't have a good life either." After that, Sam stayed in the company trying to turn the situation around. When he returned home a month later, he found that Yo-Yo had already packed up and left. Looking at the dust on the table, she had been gone for at least half a month. There was no way to find her. Under the double blow of his mental state and his career, his company was like a sieve with holes. Even his former cronies stayed away from him. After struggling for half a year, the company declared bankruptcy. That night, I was on the red carpet receiving an award. Later, when my agent vividly told me about this matter in my ear, I just smiled it off. Sam was already a thing of the past for me. After walking the red carpet and coming out, Sam somehow got the news and stopped me on the road. After not seeing each other for a long time, his face was full of vicissitudes. His hair was slightly silver. Although he was in his 30s, he looked like an old man at the end of his life. "Mina, I'm begging you. Can you help me?" "Help you?" I looked at the person in front of me and felt that this scene was extremely familiar. Yes. There was a glimmer of hope in Sam's eyes. And he rambled on to explain to me. "Let's remarry. As long as you give me some startup funds, I will definitely be able to get back on my feet. I will only love you, Mina. I will definitely treat you well." The man in front of me had a look of hope in his eyes and knelt down in front of me like a dog, begging for my forgiveness. So this was the perspective from which he looked at me when I begged him in my previous life. I suddenly felt a bit emotional. "Have you forgotten? When we were kids, you always followed me around. I asked you why, and you said it was because I was very kind to you and would protect you. Mina, I have always been protecting you." Seeing that I was silent, Sam took the initiative to bring up the past, trying to evoke my memories. I had also begged for Sam's love like this and tried to arouse his feelings with our childhood friendship. "What did he say at that time?" He threw me aside harshly, with a look of disdain and mockery in his condescending eyes. "Do you know what you look like now? You're like a dog wagging its tail and begging for mercy from its master." The two moments seemed to overlap at this moment. I looked at him with a faint smile and casually said these words. Sam's face turned gray, and he fell backward, sitting slumped on the ground, as if he never expected me to be so resolute. Perhaps in his heart, he still thought that I was the fool who would come back as soon as he beckoned and showed a little bit of kindness. I silently averted my gaze, turned around, and walked past him. Sam was left behind me, just like my failed past life gradually drifting away. I could feel his gaze fixed on me until I got in the car and left. Because Sam stopped me on the road last time. For my safety, my agent insisted on arranging 3 or 4 bodyguards, euphemistically saying it was to prevent stalker fans. But in fact, it was to guard against Sam. She was even afraid that I would become infatuated with love again. My agent kept talking about things like female independence and female value and our outlooks on life and Meyer every day. She even asked me to write a post-listening reflection, before she could feel at ease. Do you know? Some time ago, Sam stole his mother's private money, wanting to make a comeback. And as soon as he started his business, he was set up in a honey trap. After losing all his money, he made his mother so angry that she was sent to the hospital. And she died after failing to be rescued. Later, he met Yo-Yo in a brothel. They had a big fight and were sent to the police station. Then they remarried. I wasn't really surprised by what happened to Sam. The path is chosen by oneself. Moreover, neither Sam nor Yo-Yo were easy people. When jackals and tigers meet, they are destined to waste each other's lives. Snowflakes fell outside the window. It was almost the new year again, and it was time to go home for the new year. My agent and I were walking on the street, shopping for New Year's clothes. But I didn't expect the world to be so small. We just randomly entered a store and happened to run into Sam. Sam's pupils shrank slightly, and he looked at me cautiously. Nina. My agent's face turned cold. And she stepped aside to block me. This is so annoying. How can any random person come in here? Nina. Let's go. Let's go to the next store to buy something. I nodded, glanced at him, and was just about to leave when Sam rushed up and grabbed my sleeve. When he saw that my gaze was on his wrist, he quickly let go and stepped back awkwardly. Tears welled up in his eyes on his weathered face. Nina. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that back then. Can you forgive me? Even if we're destined and not to have a future together, we can still be friends. Just like we used to be. Childhood sweethearts with a pure relationship. Enough. I interrupted him coldly. Sam. Don't you understand even now? The reason I used to get along well with you was that I liked you. But now I don't like you anymore. From the very beginning, I never wanted to be friends with you. Sam opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. But my agent stood between me and him. She clapped her hands. And the bodyguards she hired for me came in handy. A muscular man in a black suit, about 1.8 meters tall, stood in front of Sam. His fierce aura made Sam tremble and shut his mouth. Hey. I've wanted to scold you for a long time. Originally, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Nina had a great future. You delayed her once. And it wasn't enough. Do you want to delay her a second time? Sam. You're a toad trying to eat us one. You should take a good look at yourself in the mirror. Even if Nina really wants to remarry, there are so many young and handsome men in the entertainment industry. Which one couldn't she choose? Where do you get the nerve? Bah. My agent stood with her hands on her hips, spitting as she scolded. Sam hung his head and didn't say anything. He obediently stepped aside and watched as my agent and I were escorted away by the bodyguards. That encounter was just a small episode. My new movie was released after the new year. Before the release, I had a lot of things to do, such as being busy with the movie's promotion and interviews. As expected, the box office soared after it was released. From the previous TV drama to this movie, both were released at the same time. For a while, I really became popular. The performance of the new movie was extremely remarkable. It became the highest-grossing movie in history. I had finally reached the top of the entertainment industry. Later, in an interview, a staff member asked me, as a married woman, now that your career is booming, have you ever thought about reigniting your love life and remarrying? Over the years, I had heard many similar words. Some well-intentioned and some sarcastic. I had already memorized the answer in my heart. I smiled and looked at my agent beside me. She was a bit older than me, but she was a firm advocate of remaining single. When I asked her, what did she tell me? Marriage is never the only way out for a woman. My previous failed marriage made me realize that love is not the only thing either. To be honest, now that I have a successful career, a car, a house, money, and good friends, and I'm not short of love, why do I have to think about remarrying? Women don't need to rely on marriage to reflect their self-worth. They can create value on their own. This is what my best friend told me. Now I'm saying it. And I hope it can encourage all of you. Perhaps these words were really reasonable. Or perhaps my influence was already great enough. That video was widely spread. And I also saw many women who followed the path of female independence. When I occasionally attended fan activities, I could always see a familiar figure in the corner. It was Sam. After remarrying, he was tormented by Yojo and looked like a middle-aged man in his 50s or 60s. 10 years. 20 years passed. Until one early morning, Sam kept calling me, but I never answered. After that, there was no news of him. I resolutely cut off all my past and created a dream future for myself.